Mt. Gox, the grandfather of the catastrophe. Imagine you owned a bank. The bank is run out of a closet. The closet is run by one guy in Tokyo who doesn't really know what he's doing. That was Mt. Gox. In 2014, Mt. Gox was handling 70% of every Bitcoin trade on Earth. 7 out of every 10 Bitcoin transactions on the planet ran through one website that started as a place to trade Magic, the Gathering cards. The CEO was a French guy named Marc Karpelès. One day, 850,000 Bitcoin disappeared from the exchange, worth roughly $450 million at the time. Today, that haul would be over $50 billion. Karpelès claimed hackers. Investigators later said the books were a mess and money had been leaking out for years. Customers got pennies on the dollar. Karpelès got a suspended sentence. Mt. Gox set the template. Every collapse since has followed, and nobody learned anything. Bitconnect, the Ponzi scheme that screamed its own name. Imagine someone walks up to you and says, "Give me your money and I will give you 1% every single day forever, guaranteed." You'd say no, you'd say it's obviously a scam. $2.5 billion of crypto users said yes. Bitconnect launched in 2016 with a trading bot that supposedly turned a 1% daily return like a magic engine. There was no trading bot. There was no engine. The returns were just new investors' money being handed to old investors. That is the literal definition of a Ponzi scheme. Their conferences became internet legend, especially one screaming promoter named Carlos Matos, who shouted the company name so loudly it became a meme heard around the world. The platform shut down in January 2018. The founder, Satish Kumbani, was indicted by the United States in 2022. He vanished. The FBI still cannot find him. $2.5 billion, and the man behind it is presumably on a beach somewhere, watching his own meme. QuadrigaCX, the exchange whose CEO conveniently died. Imagine you ran a bank, you were the only person with the password to the vault, and then you died on vacation in India. That is the official story of QuadrigaCX. Gerald Cotton was the 30-year-old CEO of Canada's largest crypto exchange. In December 2018, he went on a honeymoon in India and was reportedly killed by Crohn's disease in a private hospital. He was buried in a closed casket. With him, allegedly, went the only password to $190 million of customer Bitcoin. The auditor opened the wallets later. They were empty. They had been empty for months before Cotton died. Canadian regulators eventually called it a Ponzi scheme. There is still no body anyone has independently confirmed. There is a documentary on Netflix called Trust No One, and 96,000 customers who never got paid back. The lesson: if your CEO is the only person who knows the password, your bank is not a bank. Plus token, the $2 billion Chinese Ponzi. Imagine a Ponzi scheme so big that when the operators tried to sell the stolen Bitcoin, the entire price of Bitcoin moved. That was Plus Token. Launched in 2018 in China and South Korea, it promised crypto returns of up to 18% a month. 2 million people put their savings in. The total stolen, over $2 billion, possibly closer to 3. When Chinese police arrested the operators in 2019, the masterminds had already moved most of the coins. Researchers tracked the wallets and noticed something. Every time Plus Token laundered Bitcoin into the market, the price dropped. A Ponzi scheme so large its exit liquidations briefly tanked the entire crypto market. Most of the money has never been recovered. Voyager Digital, the trusted brand that wasn't. Imagine a bank that lends out all the money you deposit to one guy. That guy goes bankrupt. Now the bank is bankrupt. That is the Voyager story in one sentence. Voyager Digital was a publicly traded crypto lender. Customers deposited cash in crypto. Voyager promised them yield. They got the yield by lending almost their entire balance sheet, over $650 million of customer money, to one single counterparty, a hedge fund called 3 Arrows Capital. When 3 Arrows went bust, Voyager went bust 2 weeks later. $1.3 billion locked up. Customers found out their FDIC-insured claim was, in fact, not insured the way they thought. The CEO eventually settled with the Federal Trade Commission for $1.6 billion. He paid zero. He didn't have it. BlockFi, the lender that loaned itself to death. Imagine you run a savings account. The savings account pays 9% interest. To pay that 9%, you lend the money to FTX, the hot crypto exchange of the moment. FTX implodes. Your customers, including grandmothers who put their retirement into high-yield crypto savings, watch $10 billion freeze overnight. That is BlockFi. Founded by Zach Prince, marketed like a regular bank, backed by major Silicon Valley investors. The Securities and Exchange Commission fined BlockFi $100 million in 2022 for selling unregistered securities. And BlockFi kept operating anyway. In November 2022, FTX took them down with it. Bankruptcy filings showed BlockFi had $10 billion in liabilities and very little actual money. The savings account had been gambled. 3 Arrows Capital, the hedge fund that thought it was God. Imagine 2 guys who run a multi-billion-dollar fund out of Singapore. They buy a $150 million super yacht. They name it Much Wow. That is not a joke. That is the actual name of the boat they ordered. Su Zhu and Kyle Davies ran 3 Arrows Capital. At its peak, they managed $10 billion. They borrowed money from every major crypto lender on Earth, Voyager, BlockFi, Genesis, to make leveraged bets on Terra Luna and Bitcoin. When Terra collapsed in May 2022, every bet they had blew up at the same time. The fund vaporized in 3 weeks. Su Zhu and Kyle Davies vanished, did interviews from undisclosed locations, and eventually started a new crypto exchange from a private island in Bali while their old investors were still filing claims. The boat was never delivered. The bankruptcy administrators are still trying to find it. Celsius Network. The yield trap with a charming villain. Imagine a friendly bald man on YouTube tells you every week, banks are not your friends. He says deposit your money with him instead. He calls you Celsians. He pays you 15% yield. You feel like part of a family. That man was Alex Mashinsky, CEO of Celsius. Celsius had over 1 million users and held nearly $12 billion of customer money at its peak. The yield was real until it wasn't. Mashinsky was secretly trading customer funds in high-risk bets, including positions on Terra Luna. When Luna died, Celsius died. The company froze withdrawals in June 2022. Customers could not get their money out. Mashinsky kept telling them everything was fine. The bankruptcy showed a $4.7 billion hole. Mashinsky was indicted on 7 counts including securities fraud and wire fraud. In December 2024, he pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The banks are not your friends. A guy turned out to be exactly what he was warning you about. Terra Luna, the $40 billion magic trick. Imagine someone tells you they invented a digital dollar that stays at $1 forever, with no actual dollars behind it, because of math. The math is just another coin propping it up. The other coin is propped up by people buying the first coin. Now imagine $40 billion of human savings rides on this loop. That was Terra and Luna, built by a South Korean former Apple engineer named Kwon. Terra USD was the supposed stablecoin. Luna was the coin holding it up. The whole thing worked beautifully until May 2022 when a few large withdrawals started a panic and the loop unwound in 72 hours. Terra USD dropped from $1 to 12 cents. Luna went from $120 to less than a penny. $40 to $60 billion of value erased in 3 days. Suicides were reported across the Korean crypto community. Kwon fled. He was caught at a Montenegro airport in 2023 with fake Costa Rican papers. He was extradited to the United States. He is currently facing decades in prison. The math was never math. It was musical chairs. FTX. The villain everyone trusted. Imagine a 30-year-old in cargo shorts. He sleeps on a beanbag in the office. He plays video games during investor meetings. He gives money to politicians on both sides. He goes on every podcast. He buys stadium naming rights. He is on the cover of every financial magazine. His name is Sam Bankman-Fried. His exchange is FTX. At its peak, FTX is valued at $32 billion. Customers around the world hold $8 billion on the platform. Then, in November 2022, a journalist publishes a single article showing FTX's sister hedge fund, Alameda Research, has been holding the FTX token as if it were real money. The biggest competitor, Binance, says it is going to dump that token. The token collapses, Alameda collapses, FTX collapses, in 36 hours. The aftermath revealed us something worse than mismanagement. Sam Bankman-Fried had been taking customer deposits and sending them to Alameda to gamble. His own parents, both Stanford law professors, were involved. His girlfriend, who ran Alameda, testified against him. In November 2023, he was convicted on 7 counts of fraud, 25 years in prison. The man who told Congress crypto needed more regulation was running the biggest unregulated casino on the planet. The beanbag was the marketing strategy.